Dig a little deeper, see a little clearer. Learn from the people who've been there before. Real stories, real experience, real insight. This is Ace Quiz Wiz Masterclass.
Welcome, everybody. This is AI Masterclass, episode 3. We're joined by Rebecca and Dr. Hendrik Winkelmann. I had to say the full name out so that you guys know that we are serious here at Ace Quiz Wiz. Welcome, Hendrik. Welcome, Rebecca, to AI Explained, building your
Fantastic. Thanks for
personal
having us.
reality.
Thanks for having us. No pressure here, right?
No pressure at all. Welcome, everybody. As you might know, this is the third episode of this series. We had an intro episode with Dr. Valerie, another doctor that we got on this series. Then we had with Chiara. Then we have another doctor, and we'll close out again with Valerie 2 weeks from now. And we'll be, Valerie will be the guest again on that episode. But I'm super excited about today because, again, we are flipping the script. So some of you know that we use Mentimeter for driving the AI masterclass. But because we had a special guest today, we decided in the spur of moment, no slides, just conversation. We'll do polls. We love polls. You guys know this. So we'll do polls, but we'll have the focus on the conversation. So if you have any questions, please use chat, ask, take the benefit of having Hendrik here. You know Rebecca, she's been a guest on this channel multiple times. She's co-hosted episodes when I am not here. She's kind of like an in-house guest now. But Hendrik, you have to be nice to Hendrik, ask questions nicely, slowly lure him into the Atlassian champions.
Exactly.
Maybe do a little. Yeah, sorry. Should I do?
No,
maybe,
I was
maybe
just
a little-
saying. Yeah, before we start, we would ask Hendrik if you could introduce yourself to this wide group of beginners, intermediates, and maybe some people who lie about being experts, because I don't think anybody is an expert on AI.
Oh, that takes some of the pressure off. Thank you for that. Yes. So yeah, I'm Hendrik. I'm here at VAD. We are a consultancy for IT. Everything IT basically, and focus on individual software. I'm kind of in a mixed role in between lots of different research and development departments. I'm not head of these departments really, but I kind of manage what we have to research, maybe also in the future in combinations with universities. We kind of call that in VAD campus coordinator. So I have a broad overview of many different tools, and I'm very interested in my private time to invest into researching AI and also into building our internal, so VAD internal AI platform in the AI platform team that we have, and check out which technologies and AIs and broader software ecosystems we incorporate here.
So, as I said, Rebecca, almost everybody should know you at this point. But if they don't, can you please introduce yourself as well?
So yeah, I work at VAD as well. I'm head of Atlassian consultancy there, but I'm also a community champion. So you may know me from the Atlassian online forum, or maybe you've been attending some local ACEs or some online ACEs where I've done presentations. I'm doing one for Milwaukee end of July together with Rodney, which will be a fun one, focusing on robo governance, and that's sort of my main topic at the moment, finding out what Robo can and cannot do and how to introduce it securely to new organizations.
Nice. So we've got 40 people, Hendrik, as of now, but we're just 5 minutes in. We might have more. As I mentioned, please use the chat to ask any questions that you may have. We will begin with a very simple poll to get started to see where our audience is. Which AI service do you use most often? GPT, Claude, Gemini, or the tool-specific ones like Rovo and Copilot? What's your answer for this, Hendrik? What do you use?
I'm kind of switching in between tools all the time. So I started with something like Perplexity just because it offers so many different models. Then when I wanted to go more into coding, I used Claude, and now I'm kind of in. It's called Open Code Go, where you kind of get these open weight Chinese models and can try something out there and build your own agents. You have more customizability there, right? So
Nice.
kind of trying out everything. Oh, of course, Rovo also, right? If it's of course, if it's company internal data, that's my best choice.
It's a sin if you don't say robo after every.
Also, of course, Rovo is fantastic for coupling with something like OpenCode via the MCP server.
Nice. Have you already started playing? That's one area I am a little hesitant and a little, I would say, with a lack of education on how to do that. Maybe that is something that we do later on in some episode of Robo Games, Rebecca, where we talk about MCP and Robo, because I've not personally done it. What's your take on that, Hendrik? Is it working like the way you expected?
It's working mostly the way I expected. I like it very much since it also incorporates ways to restrict the functionality. I don't really want to write stuff in my AI retrieval code, so to say, just to skip the chance of it being too eager to do something. I do think that it can be a bit token heavy because it just loads every instruction it can potentially invoke in the future into the context, and that's where I would like some more CLI options. I think Atlassian also delivered with a teamwork graph CLI, but I did not yet get to use that. So that's something I have to look into because the CLI can like explore what the possible
Sure,
commands are, right?
sure.
Yeah. That just went GA, I think, this week or last week. So that's now available. I've not tried the MCP stuff out yet because I mainly use Rovo, so I don't have the need for Rovo MCP. But I have some customers that have started to use it. And there's actually been a preview for version 2 now. So there's new skills added to it. And I know that the team is working to add some further skills. I think the most interesting one will be triggering robo agents from external systems directly via MCP. I think that will be an interesting use case. There's still some restrictions when it comes to service accounts using MCP because usually it's you use your own personal account to connect, but you can use API tokens as well, and in theory use service accounts, but because the token scopes don't match the MCP skills yet, I think you can do Confluence search, get a Confluence page, and get a Jira issue or something like that. And apart from that, nothing
Sure.
works.
Yeah. I,
Yeah.
I think the entire Rovo credits page, the way, like, if I take screenshots of it every day, I could see like a trend of it changing over a period of time and just make a GIF out of it.
Yeah.
That's what my personal take on that is. But like, it actually shows, what we were talking about the other day, that let me remove Rebecca's fan club comment here and just bring you back to the actual poll. It actually shows that, like, you guys remember Orkut before Facebook, right? Orkut was like the first social media which actually blew up. Or think of Facebook, which blew up, but nobody is on Facebook anymore. Everybody uses Instagram or other apps. GPT kind of now has become that, right? Everybody started with GPT, and now nobody, or like at least not the ones who were early starters on GPT, are on GPT. I myself personally moved either to Claude, or now I use Rovo very extensively. Sometimes I use Gemini, but like GPT has gone down for me as well. Do you think it has something to do with like an early mover advantage that OpenAI had, or just Claude has been doing much better on that space?
I think there's two perspectives that you need to have on this. So if you look at ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini as a platform, then yes, you can see that decrease. But for instance, we have a chat stack internally that just has different models. So we have the same UI, but we can choose
Sure.
different models. And in this, ChatGPT ChatGPT is still our standard model. Just for like your general request, we
Sure.
still use ChatGPT models, but we do have Perplexity and we do have Claude and other models, like model versions in that for specific other tasks. So I think companies that have one basically vendor of models, they started to move to others. But companies that have their own stack and just use the different LLMs in the background still use basically all of them. That's
Sure.
my take.
Yeah. No, I agree. What do you think, Henrik?
Yeah, I also would agree with Rebecca here. I kind of note that these models like ChatGPT and GPT models in general are mostly used for like textual inputs, really. At least that's what I experience, while the Claude ones are used every time you want to code something, right? Because somehow, I don't also know why, because in the benchmarks and so on, GPT is kind of very close to Sonnet,
Yeah.
for instance. And still, I'm just dragged to Sonnet because I'm just got to trust it somehow. I built it. I built
Sure.
a lot of things with it, and I know what to expect to some degree. Of course, there are some surprises, but I feel the style matches what I want to do very well. And again, we have the luxury of having this independent platform where we can just swap between models. Still, for the same task, I tend to trust the same model, right? And if I would not have this independent task, it really becomes kind of a decision and trade-offs between different use cases, right? Because with Claude, you have, for instance, of course, all these Claude Code functionalities. And again, I like Claude more for coding. While with GPT, I feel like the multimodal part is better on the platform. But then
Sure.
again, with Claude, you have all this business functionality, which I think they did better. At least I'm not hearing a lot of OpenAI backed companies there. Like I create first drafts of PowerPoint presentations with Claude. It costs relative much, but then again, like labor is not free at all. So
Yeah.
fantastic there. So yeah.
Nice. So let me apologize, audience, first of all, for digressing so early in the conversation. But today the conversation is how to build your own AI team, and right, that actually sets up in the right direction because it does do that for us, right? Like we tend to have our favorites when it comes to models, and we stick to those models. Like in the early days, I used to ask ChatGPT everything. I used to ask Atlassian questions from ChatGPT. I used to get image creation from ChatGPT. All the series that we do for all those images, GPT is my go-to model. But for everything else, now I've started using Claude because I feel the responses are better. It's a little more like on episode one, we gave all GPT, Claude, and Gemini the same prompts. And we kind of saw how Claude's response was better to the exact same question around building a career in Atlassian ecosystem. Not choosing or not prioritizing one model to the other, but in a era where there are so many models, Hendrik and Rebecca, how do you select which tool is better for which purpose? Like for example, in general, let's say we say that chat gpt is more all hands on deck, like a jack of all trades kind of a tool, right? If you want a tool specific or your organization specific data, you might want to shift to copilot or rovo. What's the dividing line, if there is any, for tasks like this?
So it kind of depends also on what type of task, because if we have some repeatable tasks with some kind of maybe measurable quality of response, then I would say benchmark it, right? It very much is worth it to just maybe create a benchmark data set of like 100 responses or something like that and just check which performs better, right? If there is something which you just interact with, like for instance, maybe during coding, if you're not like vibe coding and just like have a large specification and just want it to be done at some point, but rather you interact with it. I think you really have to nail it down on trust for the vendor, right? And then stick with few models and just like test drive them for a day or so, because this has to build over some time. and it is harder to quantize it. You can, of course, relate to benchmarks, and oftentimes I will, but these benchmarks, there are several issues with it when it comes to benchmark pollution, where maybe models learn what has to be
Sure.
solved there. And sometimes the problems which we encounter in business are different ones than these benchmarks represent. So
Hmm.
I would say for interactive stuff, it's more choose some models which you trust, the vendor of also, and then just try it out, right, for a day or so and commit to it. Because every single model has quirks.
Sure.
Mhm.
I like what Liz says in the chat here. Liz says the thing is these LLMs are not all fits the same size. Uh, that's like having four wrenches and only using one wrench to do your whole project. It kind of talks about exactly the thing that you were mentioning. But there's a very interesting question here in the chat. Let me just highlight that, which is from I am Okta. How to boost and leverage if you're switching from an already AI area, I'm assuming it's not IT area, it's AI area, to a specialized AI position. What do you think, Rebecca?
Let me read the question again. How to switch
So
to
if you're already
specialized
using,
AI.
let's say, a general AI
All right,
area
and
where
then
you're
move. Okay.
moving to a specialized AI position, how do you leverage that movement? Are there any ways in which you can, make the best out of it?
Not sure if I've got an answer to that, to be honest. Um, so see, my
How
personal
has your
hack.
journey been? Yeah, sorry, yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah,
I meant.
yeah. I tell you my personal hack. I have a bunch of colleagues who have way more knowledge about AI models than I do, and they provide these
See
models to
left.
us with a description that says
Sure.
image generation costs 1.5 or costs 3 times or
Sure.
realistic image generation. So I know from description which one to use. So
Nice.
I don't actually have to know myself.
Nice.
I mean, I use Rovo for everything inside Atlassian. And we don't even have anything else connected. So it's pure Jira
Mm.
conference knowledge, basically. And for everything else, I just use one of these models. I use the ChatGPT model still a lot for like general stuff. I use Perplexity for web research. And then for image generation, it depends if I need an illustration that should look similar to an existing one, I use ChatGPT models. If I need a photorealistic one, I use a different model, which I can't remember
Nano
which it
banana.
was. Nana Banana, that's it. But it's all in our chat stack. It already tells me which tool to
Sure.
use. So
Nice.
my life hack is have smart colleagues who provide a list like that.
What do you think, Henrik?
Yeah,
Wo-
it's kind of
For people who
like,
might not have those smart colleagues, what do they do?
oh, okay, that's a harder question then. um, are they also restricted by model choice, or are they free to
I
choose?
don't think so. Let's
You
let's
don't
be
think
open
so?
on that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
um, well, I mean, what I would do if I would have really no tacit like experiences of my colleagues, or but have unrestricted choice, which is kind of the worst of all worlds, right? Because I want to find the best model, and most models are good enough to solve your task,
Yeah.
right? I would again say maybe for the use case at hand, if time allows for it, just do the same prompt thing a bunch of
Mm.
times, see what I like best, which results I like best, and also which results I might fix via some easy prompt adjustments or something like that, right? And then just gather some experience. That is, of course, more expensive. But I think in the end, it's again about trusting your model choice. And I think most of, for instance, the image generation models, you either see directly that some are better or all fit the job and really commit to something which you then get to know and learn your tool.
Okay. Makes
I
sense.
think, yeah, I think the differences in models become less and less important. They can, well, there's still differences, but I think it's more important to just learn how to work a model rather than just constantly switching and then basically starting from the beginning with a new model each time. So don't look at 100 models, look at maybe 3 and then find out the quirks of these and start to work with them. Similar to what we do with Rovo. Is Rovo perfect? Certainly not. Rovo it got slow as hell, but we kind of get into these quirks and details and learn how to work around them, or learn what we need to prompt for it to actually make it work. And the scenario where we have unlimited choices is not realistic in a company setting. Maybe privately we can, if we have enough money to do so, but in a company setting, you rarely have the choice between all of them.
That's a great point from Galen in the comments. Like a sedan is not a truck, is not a McLaren. They're all vehicles. So is it with AI models. But like I agree on that. But that doesn't mean that people do want a McLaren. Like you would want to have a McLaren. You can't transport stuff on it, but like you may want to McLaren. I think that's what Claude has become for most people today,
Yeah.
at least at this point.
But that's down to the task. For
Mhm.
instance, if you need to transport a lot of things, a Ferrari might not be a great choice. But
Sure,
if you just want to get from point A to B, then all of these vehicles do the job, and it's down to personal preferences if you want the SUV or the sports car, because both
Yeah,
will
so
get you to
see,
point B.
100%. So how do you make that choice, right? What Rob is also asking, like, is there an AI to help narrow down the AI options?
That's a very good question. So typically, if a new family of models comes out, like I mentioned, at first I was Perplexity right all the way
Sure.
because I could just search with all the models and I could also compare all the models basically, aside from like Opus or something, you had to pay extra for that. And then I just transitioned to Claude and just wrote a Perplexity skill there, right? And so every time now I want to compare the newest version, right? I still start at the benchmarks, although they are just like heuristics, they are like indicators in which direction it is going. I just state, well, compare the models on the same benchmarks, and then I can see, okay, maybe this is improved for coding, or GPT 5.6. I have not yet come around to test it, but I will. Has maybe improved a lot for coding and something, and maybe I will then give it a shot, right? Yeah. So again, I start somewhere, right? With the benchmarks is a good indicator, but then I would maybe extract some well-working models from these benchmarks and test them out some more to gather some experience and to trust it, right? Also, we have not even yet touched upon, like, maybe you want to downgrade the model, right? Maybe you want the cheaper version. But for me, at the very least, I would start with the middle class version, and then maybe if I have garnered enough, gained enough experience and trust with it, then I might try to downgrade. Sometimes, realistically, again, like from an economical point of view, my labor time is more expensive than the queries I sent out to Sonnet instead of Haiku, right?
Sure. It actually brings this was my follow-up question. Like, if you ask AI to describe its own capabilities or expertise, do you think Claude, like for example, if you ask Claude that are you the best to some task or some else, I feel like it
Yes.
affirms a lot. Like even in Rovo it happens. Like I'll give you a very real world example. Just last week I was working on a pitch for a client, and it was no ServiceNow and JSM. And I asked Rovo on some of the aspects. It didn't fight me back on anything that I had written. They said, yeah, whatever you have said, that Snow is better, it's good. I was like, okay. I created a new chat on one table, made Atlassian the preferred choice, and then asked the same question. I said, yeah, you're making some good points. I think that's right. So it's more affirming rather than saying no, I am good
Yeah.
or the other is good. So I've not seen AI do that. Do you think like at this point that's where we are?
So I can maybe tell a bit about Claude, at least because I've watched it do something there in this area, and it was quite the opposite, right? It was saying, well, I'm an Anthropic product. I think I'm biased towards Anthropic products. It's what it says, right?
Sure.
And I did not even prompt it, are you biased? So again, that more strengthened my relationship with this model, if you will. So
Sure.
I'm not quite sure. Yeah, maybe something like in the early days, there was some rumors that some models have some preferred products baked into the system prompt, but this was never validated, I think.
Hmm. Hmm. It's yeah. I mean, I think at this point, like with the way the models have changed specifically, and like aggregators where you can play around with multiple models, that has changed a little. But let's bring the conversation a little to the origin of the topic, right? Like when we talk about the AI team, so let me throw some scenarios, and Henrik and Rebecca, you can tell me which AI model or what tool would you use and
I
what's your
try.
justification. Yeah. All right, so let's say we'll start simple. You have to ask a general definition of a term, because and asking Google is Gemini, right? So that's, let's
Hmm.
assume that if you're asking Google, it's
Yeah.
Gemini now. So if you don't know about a topic and you're generally asking a question, what would you use?
I actually would use Google search. I don't even necessarily like the AI answer feature. Like if I want a definition of a term, I would still use a search without AI if it was down to me,
Hmm.
to be honest.
Sure.
Because then I can still go through the sources and see which one I rely on most rather than just seeing the result and then depending on that. So that's something I wouldn't even use AI for.
Okay. Henrik?
Again, kind of depends on the context. In company setting, I would of course use Rovo for definitions, right? Um, if it is just the broad web, right now I would just trust my own research skills, which I wrote. If I don't have these available, I would just go with Perplexity there. Just
Hmm.
gain a very quick overview. Because Perplexity is also kind of tuned to getting authoritative questions, sources, I mean. Um, so, for instance, for Atlassian questions, it tends to quote Atlassian or some consultancies, which are major yeah,
Sure.
consultants on the topic, which I like very much. But this is under time pressure, right? If I do not have this time pressure, I would also verify this via a quick Google search or, yeah, mostly Google.
Hmm. All right. Image
Or whatever
generation.
search engine.
Yeah, whatever.
Or what? Are you sure about Bing? I don't think so.
Well, not Bing, but there's
I
others.
was a big Bing fan for some time because they offered GPT 3.5, I think, very early or something, just for free. So,
I think for years, one of the most underrated jokes that I had was the only Bing I like was Chandler Bing. Okay.
So image
Yeah.
generation. So currently I use, I think, some middle class ChatGPT model. Not sure which one
Hmm.
we currently have, because I do a lot of illustrations. I've
Hmm.
tried out Robo Remix as well for illustrations for internal documentation. I rarely need photorealistic ones, so I don't use Nano Banana a lot. And what I like about the ChatGPT models is that they're quite good at recreating images. So
Yes.
I'm a first aid instructor and I need a lot of illustrations of first aid scenarios. I have some examples, existing examples, but I need some new scenarios and things like that, but they should look similar. So that's a great use case for these models.
What
Works
about
at,
you, Henrik?
say, 80% of the time at least.
Sure.
yeah. For myself, I design very bad slides, I would say. So I'm not really an image guy, but I'm more of a technical person. So oftentimes I
Hmm.
would use something to like LLMs to generate actually graphics on architectures or something like that. But for this, I do not really use image generation, but rather just generate SVGs.
Okay.
SVGs, right? The image type. So
Sure.
some vector figures that works out fantastic. I can modify it myself without having just this JPEG or whatever it generates. That yeah works fantastic. Otherwise, I would subscribe to Rebecca that there for just modifying some images. I think GPT has or OpenAI stuff has a very good approach there, and Nano Banana for everything else. But I hardly do
Hmm.
that. It tends to be horrible on my slides.
Sure. Okay, what about when you have to do deep research? Let's say, for example, you're trying to look for a feature which may or may not be a deciding factor between, let's take the example that I was telling you about, ServiceNow and Atlassian. So you have to do deep
Mm,
research into an area that you've never worked on, like ServiceNow for this example.
and it's probably about research, so I'd use Perplexity for
Okay.
research.
Any specific reason, or like have you just had seen, in your experience that gives the best answers?
Mm, yeah, basically. I've tried GPT for some research stuff. Raw was horrible at this, to be fair. I mean, sticking to your example, we might have some internal resources on this, but still the deep research function is shit. It takes forever,
Hmm.
and the output format is not great, rarely as you need it. So I don't really use that at all, unless I actually need completely internal knowledge. But that's rare.
Okay. What about you, Hendrik?
Um, Earlier on the day, I used Perplexity with the deep research functionality there, but I figured over time that Perplexity really is optimized also to delivering an answer kind of quick, right? Because you have basically a flat rate with it. I assume that this is also a reason why they want you not to think too hard with the models. So
Sure.
actually, I liked my Claude there because I just gave it a custom research script and I can just use Opus and still say, Opus, well, think hard about that, right? I can configure how much time on thinking tokens, on contrasting work, and so on is spent. And it took longer actually, like the way I did it, but I trusted the results a lot more. And to be honest, I don't need results that fast. I want to have results where I'm pretty certain that everything is correct and where I don't have to configure anything if I fact check, or when I fact check, because still that has to happen, of course.
I like that you mentioned the term trust in there as well, because that's one of the key terms whenever it comes for a new model, right? That creates a perfect segue to the next question that I had. Would you use these AI tools for your daily project work and things which require the finesse of a human, like for example, creating project documents, creating retrospective notes, uh, everybody in the chat, if you could just respond, and like, if you do, at what level, Rebecca, let me just start from you. Till what level do you use AI, and where do you mandatorily step in?
Yeah. So there have been some cases where I just collected some information, some existing information, and had over a Rovo add some notes. And I left it as is and just marked it as Rovo generated because it was just for other people to find some ideas and not so much about the details. So leave that as is, but mark them as not reviewed and not AI generated.
Hmm.
Everything else I would always review. I think where I trust Rovo specifically, because that's just what I use most often, is, for instance, updating Jira tickets to a certain format. Because I
Sure.
know that Rovo is not really hallucinating content. It hallucinates that it's doing actions when it's not doing anything, but it's great at keeping the content as is. Again, this is based on trust I've built over time. So I wouldn't necessarily review things like that, but whenever it comes to content that other people need to rely on later on, I certainly would do it with a review. So number
Sure.
two.
Like, I would just like, for personally, like, I've been betrayed by Robo at times. So I now look at it a little with a little more scrutiny. Like,
Mhm,
I we were discussing this in our community chat thread. Some of us had the issue where we asked Robo to update and something, and Robo archived the entire page altogether, and
mhm,
just crazy chaos of me recommending that to a customer and the customer finding that out and doubting my consulting skills to recommending that feature is not something that I'm ready for right now, at least. So
mhm.
yeah, like, I think apart from meeting notes, so personally, I would mention, apart from meeting notes, I barely use it for a lot of things. Like summary, yes, But I feel like even with summary, if there are people from multiple geographies involved, it's not very good with getting that humor. So, like, if somebody has translated, someone is a German with their limited English, they translated that comment and added a comment to the ticket, and somebody in their fluent English from US or somebody from India with again limited English knowledge wrote that, it would not get the essence of what the person is trying to ask, right? So I've seen
Mm-hmm.
that happen, specifically Rovo. These comments are something I think we all have only seen in our own organization specific tools. We've not seen that in GPT or Claude or anything. So that's where like I trust those guys a little bit more because I've not seen them flunk out on some of these things. But I'm a
Mm-hmm.
little like hesitant on specifically Robo. I want it to
Mm-hmm.
do better because you feel like
Yeah,
it's
we
your
all.
ecosystem's tool, right? Like we
Yeah.
want it to succeed, but like I look at Robo with a little more scrutiny because it's higher stakes there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you touched on a very important topic there, that Robo is born for search basically also, right? You can search throughout your whole knowledge base, but you don't really trust it to get everything you want. It's more for these needle in a haystack kind of situations oftentimes, right? I would trust Robo for cutting, for instance, user stories or something like that, if I know that everything it needs is in one place, right, and not scattered all over the place, or if I used it beforehand to just accumulate all this knowledge via some individual queries, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think, for instance, it's great if you have a transcript of a long conversation and so on, and you just tell it, well, summarize the main parts. Then I'm pretty confident that the summary comprises the most
Yeah.
important ideas, and then I can use it to create Jira stories, um, and so on. And but only then.
Mm-hmm.
What do you
Yeah.
think about like when we talk about hallucination? Do you think it hallucinates? It has reduced massively, and I'm not just talking about Robo here. It has reduced massively, but the impact of one tiny hallucination for a project could be big, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do people who are just getting started with using AI? So, like, I'll give you an example. The other day at my work, I was encouraging somebody from a non-IT background to leverage AI tools for some of their daily activities, right? So, and they were very excited at some of the small things that I showed them that it could do for them. And it looks really cool, right? For the first time when you see it, that it can do something like this, it's so cool to see it. But like the impact still is just that big as well. And like if it plunks and you trust it and you do it. For the AI tools, it's a small subtext at the bottom. It says uses AI, please verify,
Mm-hmm.
and that please verify has a lot of gravitas behind it. So how what would you recommend, Hendrik, in your position, who works a lot with these AI tools, for somebody who's just getting started? What level of context and what level of carefulness do they embed in their process so that they don't get burned?
I would first tell them that they will very probably go through this whole hype cycle. Like they will be amazed and they will be very disappointed, and at some point they will become productive with it.
Hmm.
It's very individual, and it also comes down to what maybe also industry you are working on, because some industries don't forgive really a mistake, right? If it's
Hmm.
going wrong and you send out all these policies for insurances which are faulty, that's a no-go. But if
Yeah.
it's just some website, like some web shop, and it does not affect the payment functionality, well, I don't
Sure.
bother about some bugs which might have come due to faulty specifications or something like that. Um, it is kind of an open question actually, and something that we want to research more. And it also, okay, tell me if I go too much off topic here,
Please.
because it affects so many also juniors which want to learn stuff while using
Yeah.
AI and want to learn the foundations while using AI, while at the very same time, researchers found that juniors using an AI heavily without doing stuff manually also learn it less, right?
Yeah.
So they want to be productive. At the same time, they probably must restrict themselves in their AI use and double check stuff and
Hmm.
to get the knowledge, right? And again, in the end, I think it boils down to getting a good sense of how much you can trust these models and balancing this. We want models not to be capable of just inferring stuff, right? Of just generating some common knowledge, so to say. At the same time, we don't want them to hallucinate, and the degree of how much you want the models to be capable of improvising is really use case bound.
Yeah, but Gillen, what you're mentioning in the chat, I've seen that happen as well. That specifically with Robo, that has been the case at some
Mhm.
instances. Again, that's why what Hendrik is mentioning, right? You need to have that. But like, I really like that one point you mentioned about young people getting started with AI and how that is like. I was reading an article on Medium which said young lawyers are having a hard time drafting legal proposals because they've been using AI so much. If you take that away, they're not able to draft. They've not done the hard grind, you know. Uh, but that's the case, right? Like 20 years ago, I remember when you would use a calculator, your teacher would say, you should learn maths to do in
Mhm.
your mind because you wouldn't get a calculator in your exam. And now it's so normal, you get calculators in your exam, right? It's just that trend. Maybe we are moving to an era where AI would be so prevalent in everything that you wouldn't dream of a world without AI. It's a little scary, but maybe that's where we are.
I think what has to be found out is if this is even feasible
Yeah.
without like
Oof.
leaving
Yeah.
out all the understanding of the business or of the task you want to accomplish, right? Because to see and check if something is actually good, you have to actually grasp it beforehand. And if you just trust the model does it right, you pretty much stripped yourself of your agency, which is
Hmm.
kind of ironic because we are currently always building agents, right? We just lose the capability ourselves if we just trust it too much, and that's at least my opinion there.
Sure.
And I mean, we already see that, for instance, Atlassian wants to use company data as learning
Hmm.
material because
Hmm.
if you look at the publicly available resources, already such a high percentage of it is AI generated. So AI
Yeah.
models learn based on AI generated content. So I think we all have to do our little part to still provide some good training material.
Sure.
If you basically look at it this way, because otherwise the models will just get worse and worse over time,
Yeah.
and the biases will get worse and worse, which is just not good for the world, even in a political way.
Yeah.
So we need to create our own content. Yes, with the help of AI, but in the end, it should sound like a human and
Yeah.
show human thoughts. And otherwise, I think we'll jump right into the deep end without
Hmm.
knowing how that will develop.
I think in chat some important point was that someone says, yeah, you must review it before you publish something. And I think that's
Hmm.
the most important like consequence of what we're
Oh,
talking about,
yeah.
because in the end, you kind of should be proud on your work. And are you really proud on just typing a prompt, hitting enter, and then copy and pasting that? I doubt it.
Hmm.
So that must also be clear to everyone using AI. In the end, if AI does something bad, it's also your fault if you publish it.
Hmm. Yeah, what you're mentioning is 100% right. Right? Aircraft pilots are relying so much on autopilot that they lack those foundation skills now, and they're rusty from early training, and that's what happens, right? Like, it's a little tricky, but like, do you take that away? I wouldn't say, but like, is it feasible to do it to the scale of like what the example I was giving around calculators, where it was a instrument that had to be created, and here data centers have to be set up, and the servers have to be cooled for everybody to access, and like so much water and like renewable resources go beyond just to ask somebody whether it's just like to like a server somewhere sitting is being cooled off because I asked ChatGPT to just read through my meeting notes and tell me what I already knew if I would have paid
Mhm.
attention in that meeting.
I don't
It
want
Yeah.
just
to know how much electricity is being burned by people saying thanks at the end of a conversation.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very interesting 2 minutes. Let me just take that. What's your take on being polite with AI? Like, rather than Skynet coming and being angry at us later on that you're not polite. What do you think? Should people be polite to AI?
So if I use just my models in our chat stack, I use a fresh session anyway, so they don't remember anything about me. If it comes to Rovo now has memory.
Yeah,
So Robo remembers what you're
fair.
doing. Um, Not so much what you're writing in the chat, but certainly what you're doing in your organization. So if you're nice to people and you're writing nicely about people, that's something Robo might remember. I
Nice.
don't say thank you or please very often, unless Rovo's doing something really well. Then I'd like to treat it to thank you, good
Nice.
night.
Nice.
But that's more a joke rather than anything else. And like Henrik said, it's actually polluting the planet. So I try to keep that at a minimum. Yeah.
What do you think, Hendrik? You think saying thanks and please is pointless? I mean,
I don't really. Maybe actually, maybe saying thanks does something now because, like Rebecca mentions, Rovo manifests memories, and maybe this might be a trigger for Rovo to think, oh, I did something well. Let's just make a memory of that and always do it in the future like that. I don't know about that, but besides from that, I don't really say nice. I don't try
yeah,
to be explicitly nice. I
yeah,
just like try to not be as careless and insulting as
sure.
some people are, not because I really much think it's sentient or something like that, but just because I think we already attribute so much like human
Yeah.
attributes to the AI, and I don't want that to somehow spread over to my talking to my colleagues or something like that.
100% agreed. I think that's the reason. If you want to be polite to AI, be polite to AI because that's how just you talk. Don't change the way you talk. So don't talk to AI like you're sitting in a traffic for 3 hours and you're screaming at the car next, right? Next car. Talk to AI like you're at home, relaxed to a colleague, and because that's what you want AI to be, a teammate. So if you don't use please in your daily language, perfectly fine. Don't use please. But if you do, continue using that because if you change, then it might spill over on actual humans, and that's not good.
Yeah, just don't send it as a separate message because
Yeah,
that's
don't send
wasting
that as a separate
resources.
message. Howard has actually written a brilliant point. Like, this is something that I would want to ask you next. Like, what do you think about this? Because it has become really common. It wasn't earlier. Now, GPT uses, if I would to choose between these tools, I would choose this. Like, no, you are not choosing. You're choosing on the basis of the data that has been given to you. And I've read so many researches lately where people have now AI friends, right? Or it has become a kind of like a crisis for young people. People have started using GPT as their therapists. And
Mhm.
I was watching this one episode of John Oliver where it was all about how AI chatbots have become therapists now. And I was like, ooh, it's crossing a line, maybe a very important line. Like, you're telling Sam Altman all your deepest and darkest secrets. Uh, Maybe you shouldn't do that. What do you think?
Mhm.
This.
I think that's a very good thing to keep in mind that they are not human. Again, not because I want to them to be lesser. I don't really mind about that. It's more about we if we think they are human, if we imply it because they talk like humans, act like humans, at least on a textual basis, we will also implicitly expect them to learn, which we pay them not to do, right? We pay them not to keep our data and train with that.
Sure.
And I also that's also why I'm a bit critical about having like AI teammates per se. I
Hmm.
more think of them like some functionality which is optimized for a certain process, not like they are not like substituting a role, rather they are supporting fulfilling a process, right?
That's
At least
interesting.
that's what I like to think about.
Rebecca, are we part of the problem by calling AI teammate all this while in our class and ecosystem? We should just call it AI tools Not yet.
Maybe, maybe. I think this will get more and more complicated the more agents we have, because
Yeah.
agents have more of a behavior and they have certain skills and knowledge. So they're more like this, I don't know, identity. And
Mm.
they will even get their own identity. They will have their own account in the near future. There's an EAP for this. So it's not just general rover anymore. No, it's your Jira ticket buddy or whatever you call it. So I think this problem will just um, get bigger and bigger the more specific AI tools and agents, or whatever you want to call them,
Yeah.
we get. Because if you have the global ChatGPT, you still sort of know, right, it's a chat interface, da da da. But if you see that Ticket Buddy has worked with you on a ticket,
Sure.
and it actually converses with you back and forth, it feels more like a human
Yeah.
doing the work, and it fucks up like humans too.
That's true.
So that
Yeah.
makes it even worse. That
Mm.
they're also making mistakes. They're not
Yeah.
perfect. So it makes it even more realistic that they have some form of thinking and doing things wrong. Yeah, I think for people who are still developing their brain and emotions and their personality, that's a big issue. That they
Mm.
don't get to do that with real humans.
Sure.
I also think
Same
a
open.
fantastic point has been made in chat with the thinking versus processing, because thinking implies you really have this causal kind of stream of thought, right? And
Nice.
that kind of the correlation is high, but it does not mean it will base its response entirely on causality there, right? Um, that's not the case. So yeah, we have to be careful with that, but it will kind of in the future become even more like difficult, and at some point we have to wonder when they when they become sentient. But I mean, come on, let's that's far future. I hope.
Yeah, like I would repin what Anne had mentioned. Like, I really like Excel and I use it well, but I never considered naming it. That's so true. We've used Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, and even virtual service agent for years has been there, right? Like, we never considered virtual agent even on the portal on JSM, where I spent so much time configuring, deciding the flows, everything for years. Never gave that a personality and never talked back to us like I. It was just that agent. But like how GPT and like Perplexity and all these AI models are now using I as a person, it's a little tricky.
Mhm.
But then people want that, right? The question is also, do we want to
Yeah,
give people
that's
what they want? Oh well.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just companies trying to make more money by giving
Yeah,
people what they want.
Stefan just said it's marketing to
Yeah,
call it
right.
thinking rather than processing. But in the
Yeah.
end, why do you have a chat surface? Because people want to converse rather than just do the
Mm,
task. So the conversation should feel sort of
mm,
natural. Otherwise, people won't
mm.
use the tool. But where
That's
do we
true.
draw the line? It's a
Do we?
philosophical
Yeah.
question, I think, nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I think with each passing day, it's going to get tougher and tougher to draw a line, to be very honest, because it yeah, I mean, we are definitely part of the problems because I have started calling at times AI as my teammate. After today, Henrik, I'll consciously not call it a teammate. I'll call it a tool or a process which has made some tasks easier or I've loaned off some tasks. It's not a teammate. A teammate for me is much more personal. A teammate for me is much more. I care about the teammate. I don't care about GPT right now, at least right now. Future AI lords, are you, if you're listening, right now, I don't care. I might change in the future. Uh, but like, okay, we again digress just a little bit. Bringing it back, do you think today there is a better AI or like an AI which you would rate, not just from perception of what people think it can do or what it does, but an AI which has actually gone above and beyond and can do more than what other AI models are doing?
I think it's less about the model, so more about the right tool that brings all the models together nowadays. So you need that one tool that you work with, that has access to models that are fit for the job, and that may be
Mm.
Perplexity because you do a lot of research, or that may be
Sure.
Claude for coding. But you need that one tool that you can set up and use all the time, so you don't have to switch between UIs. You don't have to,
Mm.
restart the context, because what we actually still have on agenda is, things that we put into prompts each and every
Yeah.
time are wasting our time. So
Mm.
we need to be able to give it some context. And Raw does this implicitly because it's baked
Has the
into
context.
Atlassian.
Sure.
Exactly. So it knows our role and it knows what our preferences are when it comes to documentation, things like that. But if you have a non-vendor specific tool, for instance, you need to provide that context. So you need to explain it your role, you can explain it your preferred style or your audience or whatever. And if that's things that are relevant to all your tasks, you can put it into general instructions, and those are used for all models, for all tasks, for everything you need done. And I think that's what you need to focus on. You need to find that correct tool for you
Mm.
and give that access to the models that help you do the job. And I think that's the ultimate time saver as of
Mm.
today. There might be another thing tomorrow.
Sure. I like that you mentioned, or at least ended on the sentence where, like, what you give access to your AI tool, right? Because that makes, like, for now, Rovo, it has memory, so it knows what projects that you worked on, which learnings that you've shared. But for tools outside Rovo, because specifically for this class where we've got so many people who might not be very accustomed to Rovo. They might be data center people who are not using Rovo. They're still using connecting GPT or some other model with their AI tools. uh, what guidelines should they follow when it comes to sharing data with AI? Henrik,
I
why
I
don't you
very
take
much
that?
like to think about the concepts there, it's basically a workflow which you design, which fits very well to this, like what processes do you want to your agent to work on, right? Because you
Hmm.
specialize the agent on what you want to achieve there, and you don't give it random things which are unaffiliated to the workflow. So I really much like to start with some kind of conceptual process model, which is really just strategic, like each step with any hidden complexity stripped away. And then I also find out what these steps, what kind of context these steps need, right? So
Hmm.
what data sources do I maybe also manually, if I do this task manually, need for this, or which other data sources are there which I would not use manually because I don't, for most of my work, just write ad hoc SQL queries here, right? But of course the agent can do that if it wants to.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
so very target-oriented, kind of prioritizing the on a base of a process and the desired outcome in the end, right?
Yeah.
How much time I also think into that, because data integration still is the hardest problem, I think, while designing these systems.
It's true. What Anne mentions in the chat is so true. Like, if you're not paying for it, you are the product. I feel like even if we are paying for it, and we're still the product at this point.
Rest of the product, yeah. Yeah, so if you look at it from a data protection security standpoint, again, this is highly individual for each company. Because if I say, well, you can connect it to Confluence, that might not be true for all companies, because some companies have their biggest secrets in Confluence and others
Mm.
have it elsewhere. But yes, make sure these models are not training on your data. Um, if you don't want it to be hosted in the US, which is a big concern for us Europeans, make sure you use the models that are not hosted there. You can host your own models if you're really concerned. That may not be perfect for all the jobs, but at least your data is secure. There's open source models you can use. But yeah, there's not the one answer to
Yeah.
your
No,
question.
data residency definitely comes into the picture, like specifically in AI when it's around these company specific tools. When
Mhm.
outside the company ecosystem, I don't think anybody is even thinking about it. That's what worries me. I know a
Mhm.
friend who talks about not using Rovo because their data center is not in their preferred region. but he would export something from Jira, put it into ChatGPT for getting a report. It's like,
Mhm.
dude, do you know what you just did? You like physically gave somebody the key to your system. It doesn't matter. We've already crossed the problem into way worse area. But I think we need to look at data from that perspective, right? It's not just the data that you think is important. Everything that you converse with an AI model, even in your personal life, it's all data points. Everything is being used to map you, right?
And
And
it's not even the actual words you put in, it's like behavior
yeah, right.
that you have with AI and patterns that you show. It's not so much about the specific prompt even.
Yeah,
And that's what Atlassian wants to utilize with the metadata stuff they do from August on.
yeah,
So yeah, I think it's interesting, and that just underlines the need for companies to tackle AI,
yeah,
because whether you provide a solution or not, people are using AI,
yeah. That's
and
true.
it's best to provide a solution that you control rather than
Mm.
people using ChatGPT or Gemini in Google or whatever,
Yes.
and then typing in their company data. So you need
Yeah.
to provide some form of solution, and it's best to control it rather than just letting
100%.
it
Yeah.
run free.
So I also think that is one of the main reasons why we want to stick to this very decoupled platform, like have Open Web UI instead of maybe ChatGPT's web
Mm.
application, and also experiment with the open weight models. They are free mostly, right? They can be downloaded, even though most would not run on my laptop here. I mean, some data center can just run them. It's not really, it's not proprietary in this sense. You can just jump
Sure.
from provider to provider, and some more open source stack opposed to ChatGPT or something like that is far better for this to be more independent
Mm.
from this. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad we actually came back to this a very, very important point on this because the companies have to do the take the plunge into AI, because at this point it's not even a race. If you're not using AI, you would definitely. It's not even about whether you will succeed or not. It's like whether you control it or not. People will use AI. People are using AI, right, in one way, shape, or form. You just need to have better guardrails around how you use it. Great. We're just
Yes.
coming with almost end of the hour. Thank you so much for that amazing conversation, Henrik and Rebecca. Uh, Chat was lovely as always. Thank you, Galen. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Shivato. All the guys who gave great points, great questions. The Rebecca fan club lives forever. Just all of us just answering questions in Rebecca fan club. Thank you, Henrik. Thank you, Rebecca, for joining us today.
Thank you
Thank you
for
so
having
much for
us.
having us.
Yeah.
All right.
My
See you
pleasure.
guys next time. Thank you, folks.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.
Dig a little deeper, see a little clearer. Learn from the people who've been there before.